Hey everybody, Jason Grant here. I'd like to take just a moment to talk to you for a sec about Dash B. What's Dash B? It's a great question. I'm glad you asked. It has a whole lot to do with access points and specifically part numbers associated with access points that comply with some new rules by the US FCC. Now specifically, the Federal Communications Order number 14-30 introduced some new rules for wireless LAN equipment and how they're to behave. The very first thing that I want to talk about is Uni 1. So Uni 1 is the first 4 channels in 5 gigahertz, and it's now allowed for outdoor use, where previously it was not. And that same Uni 1 4 channels, we can now transmit up to 1 watt of transmit power, which is really great in an outdoor space, probably not so much in an indoor space. There's also a section of 5 gigahertz that we were not allowed to use because it was in use by thermal Doppler weather radar. Now, that Doppler weather radar has now been added into dynamic frequency selection, which is the technology that we use to determine, hey, is there airport radar in use in the area? And if there's not, then we can use some channels. We now test for Doppler weather radar, and that introduces 3 more channels into 5 gigahertz. There's also some new behavioral rules for Uni 3, not so much of a big deal for the user of the equipment, but certainly for the manufacturer of the equipment, we had to comply with that. Now, let's run through a couple of things that are really important. First of all of these new FCC rules apply only to new access points shipped in the United States. So our current generation access points will have a new variant available, and the Dash A SKU, which designated FCC compliance, will be replaced with a Dash B SKU. Now, the Dash A SKU will still be there, but that's because in other areas in North America, we need to use Dash A, not Dash B. Existing access points that you have already in place do not need to comply. But know that when you expand your network or you replace your access points with new ones, you will get Dash B. However, if you RMA an access point because of failure of some reason, then it will be replaced with another Dash A. So that's okay. Software updates will certainly be required to support this new part number. So what does it look like on the spectrum? Well, if we take a look at 5 gigahertz and we break it down, this is the table that shows all of the different channels available to us. So that top row, the 20 megahertz wide channels, it shows us all of the channel numbers. Now, the yellow color, that indicates channels that have already been allocated for indoor use that are now allocated for outdoor use. The blue ones, really unchanged, right? Channels that are available for 5 gigahertz indoor and outdoor use. The green ones were added now with this new Dash B part number. And as you can see in the Uni 2 extended area, there are a bunch of new channels that are opened up. The Doppler weather radar is 120, 124, 128. And you can see that with 802.11g, we use 20 megahertz wide channels. So that's that top row. That next row down is 40 megahertz wide channels that were introduced in 802.11n, basically taking 2 adjacent channels and joining them together. 802.11 AC Wave 1 introduced the ability to do 80 megahertz wide channels, and then Wave 2, 160 megahertz wide channels. Let me point something out. In 160 megahertz. Notice that prior to Dash B, there's literally one non-overlapping 160 megahertz wide channel. With the Dash B part numbers, we will introduce now 2 non-overlapping 160 megahertz channels. Now, of course, this is great for perhaps home use or anywhere where you're no more than 2 APs, but the second you add a third access point, you now have some channel overlap and some issues to deal with. This is one of the big reasons why it's not recommended to use 160 megahertz wide channels in corporate environments. Now, The red section that I also want to emphasize here are some rule changes that are expected in the future by the FCC that will open up quite a bit more space. So you can see that with some future new channels that will be opened up, those channels will introduce 2 more 160 megahertz wide channels and make user density and client density a lot easier to deal with. So as we start to order access points, and if you're familiar with ordering access points in the United States, which is where I am, I always look for the designator of -A in the part number. And so all of these access points in this top table will have a new designator coming really soon, -B. So our 1000, 2000, and 3000 series access points, all of the current generation access points that support 802.11n and 802.11ac will have a -B designator. Those that are in green, the 1570, the 1830, and the 1850, already have a -B designator and do not have a -A designator. That's because they're recent introductions, and we didn't, we knew enough about the rules at the time that we didn't have to put out a -A beforehand. There are a couple of access points that are going end of sale and will not have a -B designator. The Office Extend 600 access points, as well as the older AP 3500 series access points, and some of the older generation stadium access points. The 1550 is kind of the odd man out because there's a variant that is used in IoT, Internet of Things deployments. So the variant that's used for IoT, that will have a -B designator. The ones that don't specifically relate to IoT deployments will not, and those will go end of sale. However, most of the time in outdoor environments, we're using the 1570 or the 1530 anyway. So just in conclusion, Cisco products will comply with the new FCC rules. Orderability for the new -B regulatory domains will be in April 2016. There will be a software upgrade in order to utilize those access points. Now, to get more information, simply go to www.cisco.com/go/wireless. The important document that you want to look for is the Regulatory Compliance Guide. I'll include a link here with this video, but if you don't have that link, just simply do a search for Cisco Wireless Regulatory Compliance Guide and you will get right to it. Thanks so much for your time.